normative agenda for promoting equality and non-discrimination. We do recognize and appreciate Government of Uganda including some additional safeguards in the recent budget execution circular for fiscal year 2023-24, in which all projects, whether funded by Government of Uganda or externally, will be implemented with emphasis on equality of all persons without prejudice and discrimination on the grounds of sex, race, color, ethnic origin, tribe, birth, creed or religion, social or economic standing, political opinion, or disability. We congratulate the Government of Uganda for maintaining macro stability in the face of shocks. The decision to tighten the monetary policy to contain inflation and the decision not to succumb to pressures and introduce untargeted subsidies dampened the pass-through into broader inflation and enabled demand adjustments while preserving fiscal resources. We also commend the government's fiscal consolidation efforts that are helping preserve the fiscal space amid the high-interest global financial environment. We encourage the government to continue with ambitious fiscal consolidation and structural reforms to eliminate obstacles to scaling up private lending by commercial banks. We also urge the government to persevere in the implementation of the IMF External Extended Credit Facility Supported Program, which provides concessional financing and fosters growth-supportive reforms while strengthening governance, which has the potential for unlocking further financing at lower cost. Efforts to raise other concessional financing should be pursued. We encourage the government to expeditiously implement the recommendations of NDP3 midterm review to accelerate attainment of the set targets beyond the 17% that was achieved at the end of the second year of NDP3's implementation. This will require alignment of the annual budget to the NDP3, improving planning and budgeting for core projects, and strengthening monitoring and evaluation systems. We stand ready to assist on the latter if needed. Given that we are here to consult on the budget, the development partners would like to emphasize a few priorities for 2024-2025 budget. First, domestic revenue mobilization. Effective implementation of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy presents an opportunity to secure low-cost financing for development. The ambitious targets of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy can be achieved at least in part by rationalizing tax expenditures that have grown substantially over recent years and have eroded the tax base. We encourage the government to press forward decisively with these plans while data collection, evaluation, and cost-benefit analyses are undertaken by tackling low-hanging fruits expeditiously. We also encourage the government to implement the recently adopted public investment financing strategy, which provides a framework for widening the range of financial resources raised from domestic and external sources and through innovative vehicles. 2, human capital development. Human capital development is key to boosting Uganda's growth prospects. Uganda's population is projected to increase by 60% in the next 20 years to around 74 million from an estimated 45.5 million in 2023. This presents an enormous opportunity if investment in human capital, especially education, health and social protection, are adequate for preparing the working age population for the labor market, which requires skilling and health protection for productivity. While spending consumption has improved recently, its needs are large and budget execution is inadequate, mainly due to capacity constraints in the ministries, departments and agencies, and local governments. There are also inefficiencies within the human capital development sub-programs. We encourage the government to continue allocating adequate resources for human capital development and work to address inefficiency and boost budget execution. We stand ready to assist with capacity development if needed. 3, agricultural productivity and value addition. In order to move households from the subsistence to the market economy in a sustainable manner, it will be necessary to increase agricultural productivity through additional investments in public goods such as extension, access to affordable finance, research, especially into drought and disease-resistant seed varieties, the promotion of climate-smart farming practices, the control of pests and diseases in an environmentally friendly manner, the development of produce marketing networks, and strengthened inspection and certification services. There is also a need to encourage smallholder farmers to become more involved in value addition of produce. 4, and last, green growth and climate change adaptation and mitigation. Green growth requires accelerating support to green industries, including by expanding renewable energy projects, including climate-smart food production value chains, climate change adaptation initiatives in the design of infrastructure projects, and safeguarding water resources. Any new infrastructure should be climate resilient so that production is not disrupted by extreme weather events. More investments are still needed to ensure industries have access to stable and low-cost electricity, and all Ugandans have access to sustainable electricity. Since public funds are limited, mobilization of private investment and finance will be crucial in achieving the objectives of Uganda's NDCs. We encourage the government to create an enabling environment for green investments and work with the private sector and financial institutions to leverage additional investments in renewable energy and eliminate adaptation. And I'm really happy to note that there was a nice alignment between what the development partners are proposing as priorities and what the Honourable Minister mentioned in his speech. Right Honourable Prime Minister, let me conclude by thanking you again on behalf of the Local Development Partner Group for inviting us to participate in this important conference and to reiterate our commitment to the development of Uganda, including the continued support towards Uganda's internationally acclaimed progressive refugee policy. We wish all of us successful deliberations in designing a budget that will address current economic challenges. We look forward to further discussions on how we, the development partners, can best engage to support sustainable and inclusive growth in Uganda. And I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The Chairperson, Local Government Partners Group. Can I now invite the President Uruga? The President Uruga is also the Chairperson LOC5, Kabarore District. Join me in welcoming him.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Prime Minister, for availing us this opportunity, the Honourable Ministers here present and the Ministers of State, Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, the Ambassadors and Heads of Diplomatic Missions, Permanent Secretaries and Senior Officials of Ministries and other government agencies, Members of Uganda Local Governments Association and Urban Authorities Association, colleagues, district chairpersons, resident district commissioners, Your Worship, the mayors and other local government political leaders, chief administrative officers, town clerks and city clerks, distinguished participants, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Right Honourable Prime Minister, we extend our sincere appreciation to the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development for always availing us the opportunity to present the plight of local governments and the issues that affect us. By developing and sharing this position paper, we as local governments, we are hoping to communicate our collective opinion on the key concerns at program level and on overall performance and financing of local governments, which, when addressed under the financial year 24-25 National Budget Strategic Framework, will trigger pivotal and sustained improvement in service delivery and economic development at grassroots level. Right Honorable Chair, our presentation is structured in two parts. On part one, we are looking at the program priorities documented under the conditional grant agreements, and part two will focus on cross-cutting local government performance concerns. On part one, Right Honorable, it is with great hope that we shall use this forum for the official submission for the financial 24-25 conditional grant negotiation agreements. The conduct of the annual conditional grants negotiations is governed by Article 193, Section 3 of the Constitution of Uganda 1995 as amended, and the Local Government Act Cap 243. This requires that local governments must agree with the central government on local government programs and conditions attached to the grants that go to the local governments. These agreements, Right Honorable Chair, culminate into new guidelines that are issued by the respective ministries, and they also form part of the ministerial policy statements. The purpose of these agreements is essentially to define and set out the terms and conditions for the expenditure if the conditional grants for the financial 24-25 in each service sub-program. Previously, the negotiations were concluded in the middle of the budgeting cycle, and as such, the possibility of success was hindered. We wish to take this opportunity, Right Honorable, to applaud the Minister of Finance, the Local Government Finance Commission, but because for this year, the negotiations were conducted well in time from the 28th day of August to the 7th day of September for this forthcoming financial year 24-25. And therefore, what we are presenting today, Right Honorable Chair, is as a result of the negotiations where we sat for about 9 days with 9 ministries, and we agreed on positions which I will enumerate here below. We therefore hope that by sharing our issues in this national budgeting platform that guides resource allocation each financial year, we can communicate a clear and consistent message on the steps that can be taken to ensure more effective use of public funds to provide public services. Right Honorable Chair, below are the recommendations that we made with the various ministries, departments, and agencies. The Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development committed to provide 2 billion shillings as part of startup grant for physical development planning for the financial year 24-25. The Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities committed to provide 1.6 billion shillings grant to support tourism activities in local governments as a starting point for the financial year 24-25. All ministries agreed to disseminate sub-program implementing guidelines to local governments during the upcoming regional budget consultative workshops. 4, there was a commitment from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to release unspent balances latest by the second quarter of the new financial year. Commitment from the Ministry of Finance to provide for ex gratia for local councils for the current financial year, and I must commend the Honourable Minister of Finance. He has already alluded to this and has already made a provision for the same. Commitment for the Minister of Finance to provide for extension grants and micro-irrigation grants under production for the financial 23-24, and thereafter reinstate funds for production and marketing and agricultural extension. And we did agree with the Minister of Finance at these negotiations that these grants going and affecting service delivery in local governments will be ring-fenced because they do affect service delivery at grassroots level. The Minister of Water and Environment agreed to include non-seed secondary school as beneficiaries of rural water and sanitation conditional grant and explore partnerships between National Water and Sewerage Corporation, the Minister of Education and Sports, and local governments in order to provide water to non-seed secondary schools. Right Honourable Chair, the Minister of Water and Environment further agreed to increase the budget allocation for environment and natural resources management to enable adequate redress of the intended ENR functions upon which all developments spring. The Minister of Water and Environment shall also secure funding for cities, environment and natural resources grant. Further, the Ministry of Water shall ensure that local government performance assessment guidelines value all sectors, including wetlands, forestry, climate change, etc., and include some parameters to trigger action. And finally, the Minister of Water and Environment, in liaison with the Office of the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Planning and Economic Development, shall consider providing a grant to kickstart management of the population's energy demands as an alternative to wood fuel and charcoal. Right Honourable Prime Minister, on part 2 of the key service delivery issues, we bring the following to this platform. Number 1 is on road rehabilitation versus road maintenance. Right Honourable Chair, following the presidential directive, government allocated to each district and municipality shillings 1 billion for rehabilitation of roads outside the Uganda Road Fund jurisdiction. This was laid before Parliament by the Minister of Works and Transport, and the rehabilitation grant guidelines were provided. Right Honourable Chair, however, there was change in this direction by Parliament so that the grant changes the name from rehabilitation grant to road maintenance grant. Now, while we welcome this resolution, Right Honourable Chair, we note that the budgets had already been approved and the budgets had been uploaded reading rehabilitation. As I speak today, Right Honourable Chair, as local governments we are quite stuck because we appreciate 250 million was released for this first quarter. But due to change of plan now, we are stuck on which direction to take because the budgets that were approved and uploaded were reading road rehabilitation. But on 27th of July, there was change in mind by Parliament that we take it now to maintenance. And no clear guideline has been provided to date on which direction to take. And Right Honourable Chair, this will have an impact at the end of the financial year to tell us that we have failed to absorb these funds, and yet there is lack of clarity at the centre. We do pray, Right Honourable, that you give a direction on this to enable us kickstart the work of either maintenance or rehabilitation. So our recommendation here is that the Minister of Works and Transport should immediately issue implementation guidelines to local governments to enable the smooth use of 250 million for road rehabilitation, and thereafter issue guidelines for the coming quarter in case of any changes. Government needs to procure road unit for local governments that do not have underworks, more especially the new districts and the new cities that were created. Right Honorable Chair, on medicines in the health facilities, we appreciate government, like the Honorable Minister of Finance did note, that a number of health centers in the countryside have been upgraded from Health Center 2s to Health Center 3s. But the delivery and distribution of drugs has been a serious issue. In the last financial year, Right Honorable Prime Minister, we received the drugs 3 times out of the 6 cycles that are expected, because we expected to receive drugs once in every 2 months. But in the last financial year, we received the drugs in August, we again received them on 1st February, and then some drugs came in the month of June. We recommend that the Minister of Health, 1, should increase on the budget for the drugs in order to boost supplies in the already constrained health facilities. And also we recommend that the Minister of Health and other monitoring units of government should enhance their monitoring and evaluation of performance of national medical stores in order to help them deliver medicines and other supplies on time. Right Honorable, as we upgrade these health facilities, a new need is coming up of the accommodation for health workers. Because we are moving from Health Center 2 to Health Center 3 with renewed mandate, the Health Center 3s do antenatal services, they deliver mothers, and therefore they expect more staff in form of midwives and clinical officers who need to reside at these facilities. Right Honorable Chair, we propose that with this upgrade and with the progressive construction of facilities, we should now look at also increasing on the accommodation of health workers to enable them to deliver on the renewed mandate of the upgraded facilities. The 4th issue is on procurement and the U-Gift project implementation in local governments. We have discussed this before. Right Honorable, at the end of last financial year, shillings 734 billion, 773 million, 36,697 shillings were returned from the local government back to the center. And 31% of this money, which translates into 225 billion, 233 million, 583,293 shillings, was meant for U-Gift projects in local governments. We have continued to discuss this at various levels, but we have not seen any meaningful change. It is our recommendation, Right Honorable Chair, that U-Gift projects procurement and management be fully decentralized to avoid these challenges of returning monies and with the view of one common slogan that local governments lack capacity to absorb. The hybrid procurement has been a disservice to the local governments, especially the lotting of projects, the late advertisements, and all these have been a serious problem that affect service delivery in the local governments. We do therefore recommend that we fully decentralize and central government plays the oversight role as its mandate is. Right Honorable Chair, issue number 5 is staffing at local governments. The average staffing level at the districts now stands at 57% and 52% for municipalities. These officers that are absent include district engineers, district natural resources officers, district health officers, chief finance officers, district planners, district community development officers, education officers, to mention but a few. Where we appreciate that the Minister of Finance has continued to send us wage On the other hand, the Ministry of Public Service has put a ban on recruitment. Part of the money that was returned at the end of last financial year, constituting 49%, Right Honourable, was on wage. 358 billion 939 million 183,245 was on wage and spent. This puts us in a very bad position. We lack the requisite staff. Government has advanced us money in trillions. We are supposed to implement using these heads of departments and technical officers who are not in post. We are not lacking the money. The wage has been allocated, but with the condition of don't recruit. I know there is this new issue of the Auditor General's audit of the payroll. That one is a new occurrence. But this problem has been perennial. And we again note, Right Honourable Right Honourable Prime Minister, that even when we are allowed to recruit on replacement basis, any staff who retires, who dies, who absconds in the month of April, May, June, that one you cannot replace because the advertisement cycle will not allow to recruit someone within 3 months. The advert takes slightly more than 90 days. And therefore, our recommendation is that the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, working closely with the Ministry of Public Service, should lift the ban on recruitment of staff to enable us to recruit the requisite staff. We further recommend that the limitation on recruitment on replacement basis for 8 months should be removed for local governments to recruit and replace staff whenever a position falls vacant. We further recommend, Right Honourable Prime Minister, that revoting of wage budget swept off at the end of the last financial year be revoted in the first month of the quarter for the financial year, other than revoting it towards the end of the financial year. Right Honourable Prime Minister, you do recall when we met you as leaders from the Rwenzori, we raised this issue. We appreciate your effort. There is reasonable progress to this effect, but we want it adopted as a good practice that all the monies that have to be reverted in the first month of the following financial year to enable us as local governments to implement on our respective mandates. Right Honourable Chair, there is a problem of property sharing between mother districts and cities. Properties on titled land. The idea of district sharing properties is not a new occurrence. Districts have always shared properties with municipalities and new districts and those that have been annexed into the cities. Given that the districts are leaving central locations where a majority of the local revenue sources are and they are moving to the periphery, it is our desire that the districts maintain titled properties within the cities as a source of local revenue for districts in a spirit of local economic development. In any case, there is no law prohibiting districts from owning properties outside their jurisdiction. Properties on titled land. The management of properties, of untitled land, or where the process of titling commenced and it is still underway, negotiations can be initiated to conclude the process to either have properties registered in names of the mother districts or the city as a resolution of the two. Examples are green belts where there are no titles. These green belts should be left under the management of the cities. It is our recommendation, therefore, that the districts be allocated in the coming budget 24-25 at least a startup of 1 billion to enable us kickstart building on our headquarters where we are relocating to, but also support be given to the cities in the same direction. And more funds should be availed in a phased manner depending on the available building plans for districts and cities for a minimum period of 5 years. Allocation of funds to extension services. In the current financial, Right Honorable Prime Minister, in the current financial budget allocation, we note that there are no allocations towards production and marketing grant and extension services. Yet local governments are expected to provide extension services in a drive to bring communities into the money economy. Right Honorable Chair, Pillar 1 of the parish development model is on production, processing and marketing. And for us to have increased production and productivity, we need to have an active and facilitated extension staff. Now sending 1.06 trillion to the communities in all the parishes and saying we don't have about 75 billion for the extension workers to go and monitor this progress, I think presents a very big paradox, Right Honorable Chair. It is our recommendation that the government allocates funds for extension services in the current financial year and also provide extension services in the financial 24-25 as agreed during the negotiations, and also we say that these two should be ring-fenced for the subsequent budgets. We appreciate, because from his presentation, the Minister of Finance did assure us that he has finally found the money for the honoraria for LOC 1s, LOC 2, LOC 3 councils, and the district councillors. We appreciate that. We have raised this as an issue, but he has already provided information, and I will not go into that. Number 9 is on the vehicles for local government leaders, specifically chief administrative officers, district chairpersons, municipal mayors, town clerks, and district speakers. Right Honorable Prime Minister, we note that monitoring of government programs is our mandate, and that's the reason for which we exist. And yet we recognize the directive by the President not to procure vehicles for government entities in this financial year. However, there is a critical need for transport facilitation in the form of vehicles for the officers I have already mentioned. A quick calculation puts this at 35 billion Uganda shillings. It is our recommendation, Right Honorable Chair, that while we send 1.06 trillion for PDM, where we spend about 6 trillion as budget allocation to the local governments in this country, we can never fail to get 35 billion to procure vehicles for these officers to supervise these government programs. Otherwise, we are held accountable when things go wrong, and yet we are not facilitated to do the work. The Honorable Chair, I almost missed this opportunity because they had to wait for public means to come here, because they don't have a government vehicle that can deliver me here on time. We pray that in the coming budget, the procurement of vehicles for local government leaders is given priority to enable us do the oversight role as mandated by the law. Right Honorable Chair, on the issue of pension for district leaders, political leaders, we note that most of the political leaders, after retiring from political service, they lead very miserable lives. We pray that a leader who has served at least 2 terms in the service or the political service of a district, on retirement from the active payroll of the political leaders, he or she too should move to the pensions payroll for a reasonable number of years like it is at Parliament. We note that the parliamentary pension scheme is contributory, but the local government leaders may not get into the contributory pension scheme. We pray that discussions be initiated in the view of amending the law to have the local government political leaders on retirement, those who have served a minimum of 2 terms, be enrolled to the pension scheme of the district. As I move towards the end, Right Honorable Chair, on the issue of local government leaders' salary enhancement, we appreciate the ban, but again we appreciate the enhancement of salary for the scientists. We pray that going forward, the category in the non-science civil service should also be thought about. We also pray that the local government leaders across the board should be considered under the salary enhancement arrangement in the coming financial year. We go to the same markets, we go to the same supermarkets, and we use the same means of transport. We got the same petrol stations to fuel our cars. Right Honorable, we recommend for the enhancement of leaders' remuneration and the non-science category to start with at least by 100% to start with going forward. The single treasury account has continued to disturb us in our daily operations, where we have to collect the money, remit it at the center, then requisition for the same money. This one takes a lot of time. And when it takes a lot of time, the town councils and cities are choking on garbage. They can't collect garbage because they are affected by the PFMA Act that introduces the single treasury account. Right Honorable Chair, it is our recommendation that the amendment of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 takes effect in the coming year to allow local governments to invest and spend local revenues at local level without remitting them to the single treasury account. We appreciate the parish development model and the Pillar 3 of financial inclusion. We appreciate that all the 10,459 circles have benefited with a minimum of 100 million each, but it is our recommendation that more allocations PDM and involvement of district leaders in its monitoring and implementation be considered. The money is there. The parish development committees are doing the work, but the district and sub-county leaders are constrained to monitor this very good program because they are not taken care of under the structure of PDM. Honorable Minister of Finance, we have a request that the local governments in Uganda do subscribe to the association called Uganda Local Governments Association, and those in the urban to the association called Uganda Urban Authorities Association. We have both passed a resolution that our subscriptions be coded and deducted on source. We should save us the burden of running district per district, municipality per municipality looking for subscription. There can be a better way of doing this than leaving it in that very rudimentary and cumbersome way. We pray that our subscriptions, annual subscriptions, be deducted from source to enable these associations run their businesses. Finally, we are grateful, Right Honorable to His Excellency the President, who directed that these associations be given a subvention. Actually, the President directed 3 billion per annum, 1 billion for UAAU, and 2 billion for Olga. But we have had a challenge getting this subvention, and the last time what we got was only 26 million out of the 2 billion. It is our recommendation that the Minister of Finance increases this amount to at least 200 million if he cannot get the 2 billion per quarter to enable these associations undertake their mandate. Right Honorable Prime Minister, as I conclude, I wish to pose a few questions. Why we are here today and what do we hope to achieve? What is the value added to local governments when audience is given by this meeting to the association to discuss on key sub-program policy matters affecting local governments? Why are all local governments, mayors, chairpersons and chief administrative officers being represented at this integral platform through random sampling. In the same way, all ministries and agencies are represented by their ministers, permanent secretaries, and executive directors. All higher local governments should be represented here, is our concern. Medium income status for Uganda is not going to be obtained in Kampala alone. It must be attained through collective action for all implementing agencies working together and being financed realistically. Right Honorable Chair, decentralization is the only decentralization is the only way quality service delivery will be provided to citizens and taxpayers at the grassroots. Citizens who are financing the budget, we have all come here to discuss and apportion. I do hope that Uganda Local Governments Association is provided a slot at the regional budget workshops to provide and highlight on the outcomes of the 2024-25 annual conditional grants negotiations to inform the planning and budgeting process right from the grassroots. Right Honorable Chair, I thank you for your kind attention. I say all this for the unity and efficiency of local governments and for God and my country. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me now invite the ED, Mr. Julius Mukunda, to come and present on behalf of civil society organizations. I think they are twins. I can see.
Yes.
We have a private sector foundation.
Yes.
Mr. Eric Mukumba.
Mukunda Julius, Honorable Minister.
Mukunda.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister.
Okay.
All protocol observed, and Honorable Prime Minister, is that I'm here with Akode, and he will present. He will also has a small component of what we're going to talk about. But just to say, Honorable Prime Minister, that we have been dedicated to promoting equitable, gender-responsive, and sustainable development in Uganda. And through our collective voice, we strive to ensure that the voices of the marginalized are part of the national budget process. And today, we are here to do that. Let me commend the Honorable Minister's presentation. I think there are a few things, Honorable Prime Minister, that we need to emphasize and are very important. Our economy is the way it is because of certain things we have done. And one of them is the coordinated fiscal and monetary stance that we undertook to be able to manage the inflation. As you saw, our neighbors are struggling, but we are doing well. I think that's very, very important for us to take in consideration. The second most important element is the enhanced reforms in our public investment management. Honorable Prime Minister, a number of things have been done to improve return to investment. For example, we have an integrated bank project where we have ready-made projects we can pick for implementation. We have strengthened our development committee to ensure that only quality proposals can be financed by government. These are not small things, Honorable Prime Minister. I know we have a long to go, but these are things we can consolidate our work on. Honorable Prime Minister, for the first time, the Honorable Minister of Finance has responded to the issues of the previous conference. For us who engage in this process, we find it extremely very, very important. And we thank you, Honorable Minister, for remembering the issues we raised and that today you took time to respond to them. We thank you so much. As we head to the 2024-25 budget,
Let me request your brother to have a seat.
Oh. Thank you. As we head to the 2024 budget, the challenges that are ahead. And again, we are happy that the way we are articulating how to address them is really very, very, very good. But most importantly, you talked about debt management. Honorable Prime Minister, I agree with you 100% that we must be in our sustainable levels. And the Minister also talked about the strategies that we can implement to manage our debt. A few things we need to do, and I think for me they are very key important. Number one, Honorable Prime Minister, we promised 3 years ago that we will allow Ugandans to buy bonds and securities using their mobile money. Honorable Prime Minister, when you have your money in the bank, they give you less than 1% of the saving rate, of the interest rate they give you. But if I buy a bond from the bank, they are likely to give me around 9, 8, 10%. It is a saving, but also I'm contributing to the development of my country. It not only increases financial inclusion, but also it increases income. Is spearheading that. I would like, Honorable Prime Minister, to do your chief whip role to ensure that it is done this particular financial year. We have already talked about effective DRM. Honorable Prime Minister, we can only have DRM if we invest in URA. I know that currently Uganda Revenue Authority is not on all the borders of Uganda. They are on half of them. Others are still porous. We are a landlocked country. It would be good to see how we intend to cross borders and ensure that everybody who brings in goods, they are taxed. The other element, I think, which is important, we have seen the government trying hard to reduce domestic borrowing. Definitely, Honorable Prime Minister, this is going to have an impact on the reduction of the interest payment for the private sector. So, the second important element we need to do, Honorable Prime Minister, and this is within your docket, is coordination of government agencies to deliver as one and avoid wastage. And I will not say much because the previous speaker said, you have money for wage, but you have a ban on recruitment. Already shows lack of coordination in the government. In the previous meeting I mentioned, you have even government department taking themselves to court. One goes to court and sues another one. And me, the taxpayer, I will lose on both because I will support you to win the case, and when you lose, you pay the damages. Honorable Prime Minister, I know these are all your children. You should bring them into the house, whip them, and then they get into line. We stop wastage of public resources. The third element, you can clap for me, it is okay. The third is tax governance framework, and we have talked about it, Honorable Prime Minister. But it has been a song for so long. For so long. We need this framework in place. Would it be possible for you to give a time frame when we should have this tax governance framework that we can be able to monitor how our tax exemptions are given, and also how are we monitoring them and the benefits we are getting. Monitoring is our biggest problem, Honorable Prime Minister. We need that in place so that we can distinguish between chapati investors and the real investors. The fifth element is supporting the private sector. Two things here, Honorable, we need to do. We know we are doing some work. We have programs. We have MYOGA. We have SME funds. We have UDB. We have and so many others. But it is important also to understand the functionality of these. UDB is meant for commercial production, and that's it. That's what they're supposed to do. Let us not involve them in small and medium enterprises. But the other funds, the small and medium enterprise fund, is not functioning because it is becoming increasingly difficult for small, medium enterprises to access them. We don't want to give money to briefcase companies so that we lose money, no. But I think there should be a means on how these management enterprises can access these monies, because it is very critical for their growth. Interest rates are very high. An interest of 20%, Honorable Prime Minister, you can't be able to grow. Salary Review Commission. Honorable Prime Minister, I think this is again in your docket. The disparities in the salary ranges really reduces the motivation among civil servants. We understand we want the scientists to get their share, but like the previous speaker said, they all go to the same shops and use the same means of transport. It is therefore important, Honorable Prime Minister, that we have this commission in place, review all people's salaries, so that we have no excuse as to why people are not doing their work. Lastly, Chair, before I invite my colleague, is the issue of service delivery standards and price list. We are doing a commendable work, and I would like to thank the Public Service Ministry. The work on service delivery standards. But Honorable Prime Minister, as long as we do not enforce these standards, we will continue to lose monetary resources. And particularly for me, I'm pushing for a price list for government. How much does this pen cost for government of Uganda? To find the same pen supplied by the same supplier to different government departments at different costs, above the market price, and yet to even purchase in bulk. It is not only annoying, Honorable Prime Minister, but it is sad. And that's how we lose resources. This is just a pen, but just imagine a classroom, just imagine the vehicles we buy as a government, that we have no standard of what a government vehicle is supposed to look like. It is imperative, Honorable Prime Minister, that again use your office to whip, so that these things can be enforced and we conclude them very well. Let me ask my colleague to also finalize his statement. Thank you.
Right Honorable Prime Minister, ministers present, members of Parliament, the diplomats, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Binomuchisha, I'm the Executive Director, CORD, and I come here because of the partnership we have with the Ministry of Finance and the BTI, Budget Transparency Initiative, and our job is to promote budget transparency and accountability. And the ideas that we bring here, that my colleague has articulated, that I will also articulate, come from evidence-based research. They are not our aspirations, they are not what we wish list, but they are researched, and therefore they are scientific. Thank you, Julius, for raising that, but I start with appreciation, Honorable Minister of Finance. First, of course, to allow civil society to work with you and to raise inconvenient truth in order to improve governance of our country, but also services to our people. So we appreciate as civil society for that space. And you know, because of that, the country's rating in budget in transparency has improved. Right, Honorable Prime Minister, I have a few issues to supplement my brother's submission, and one of them is the rationalization of government agencies, commissions and authorities. Want to commend the Minister. It is one of those issues that you want to, that the next financial year will focus on. But I think we have been taxing a lot on the tarmac. We must take off, because we are holding 1 trillion Uganda shillings if we rationalize it these agencies and would release this money to local governments which are dear to us, because that's where production takes place. So we want action on that. It has been long overdue. We know that it is not easy, but it is doable. But also rationalization will release very experienced people, very highly educated people to the private sector. And for me, I work in the civil society, not in the government. I have survived there. I have a PhD. We have survived there. So we want to welcome people who have survived on government for too long to join the private sector and turn around this country. Because this is a private sector-led economy, but we lack people. You'll be surprised that most of the people that actually dominate the private sector in this country are not very schooled. What if this process releases very educated people early enough to go and modernize agriculture? So please prepare and send them off with some money to start off, to join us, and we transform the private sector. The second point has to do with climate financing, the whole environment and natural resources sector. Right Honourable Prime Minister, the government of Uganda should be commended for having put in place a very enabling legal regime, policy regime, and institutional framework in terms of environmental governance. And unfortunately, it is not implemented. As we talk now, you can see the rains have come late. And what does that translate to? Famine, drought, famine, and of course, reversal of the economic gains that we have made. And I want to bring to attention one of the rivers that Accord and the Ministry of Water and Environment and other partners have been trying to restore. River is, I can see our Member of Parliament from Rwampara is there. The river is, we have invested billions of money for us to restore that river. It is a lifeline from Mbarara City. It has been degraded completely. Yet we have restored it to some level. Now it has been degraded by the private sector. So it has to do with, and the government agencies, NEMA is there, the ministry is there. So I'm asking, and I think this maybe we need political intervention to stop the destruction of River Ruiz. An investor is mining, sand mining, and the whole place is being silted. 10 years of investment, restoration of that river powers into Lake Victoria here. It traverses 13 districts from Ubweju up to here, now being destroyed, and Mbarara City has no water. If you sleep in Mbarara, and I don't want to discourage people to come, but there is no water. You open the tap, you get it's muddy water. And now, of course, the government has gone to River Kajera to bring water to Mbarara and Masaka. What if we restored this river? You need a little money to restore this river and, of course, conserve the environment, have enough water for production and everything, than actually pulling it with a lot of money. And the River Kajera water is dirty. So you need a lot of money to purify that water. So I'm raising this so that the leaders can join us and stop that investor who is supplying, of course, sand. There's a lot of construction, but at what expense? The environmental debt is so huge. I thank God I have the opportunity to raise it here. But you see, all the river systems are degraded. And there's a presidential directive, actually, which is being violated. So I'm calling upon the Right Honourable Prime Minister to take action. If I had the time, I would have screened the pictures, and you see, because they are using graders, they are using the Sinotrax, and soon we'll have no livelihood. The other issue, quickly to finish, has to do with local government. And the President of Uruga has really ably articulated the issues in local government. But what I want to add is that the local governments, within the framework of decentralization, is a lifeline for this country. People have come and benchmarked this the decentralization here. Accord runs the local government scorecard initiative. This scorecard has been benchmarked. We have exported it to Botswana, we have exported it to Kenya, we exported it to Sierra Leone and South Sudan. They wrote to me, the Minister for Local Government, that we take the scorecard there to enhance their decentralization. And unfortunately, here in Uganda, we don't seem to treasure where we have also made a mark. And therefore, it is really a fallacy that local governments cry out here. For me, we need to put more money where production takes place, where more Ugandans take place. I think our calculation is that the Ministry of Local Government requires about 16 billion, for example, to induct leaders. And of course, in the financial squeeze that where we are now after COVID-19, this looks a bit outrageous. But you know, we have elected local leaders. We have people in the statutory bodies, the land board, the public, the land board, the park. They were appointed and they are clueless of what they are supposed to do, and no wonder corruption has actually skyrocketed in the local governments. They are clueless. So we need to urgently, Right Honorable Prime Minister, to induct the local government. Now we are in the second 2.5 years now. People are just operating in darkness. I tell you, you cannot give someone just a needle to fight a lion. These people are important. Governance is important. So inducting these people is critical. As I conclude, Right Honorable Prime Minister, I know that I'm standing between us and our lunch. Let me just comment quickly. I think I saw URA here on the combating illicit financial flows. Combating illicit financial flows. Every year, Uganda loses about 2 trillion Uganda shillings in illicit financial flows. And this encompasses activities related to crime, corruption, and commerce. Specifically, trade-based money laundering is characterized by tactics such as manipulation of invoices and deceptive description of goods and services. Among Uganda's top 15 exports, which are particularly susceptible to trade misinvoicing, are gold compounds, petroleum products, other precious metals, sugar and sugar confectionery, coffee, hides and skins, fish products, cobalt, vanilla, tobacco, etc. So we recommend that they need to increase support and funding to frontline agencies such as Financial Intelligence Authority, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, Uganda Revenue Authority, Criminal Investigations Directorate of Uganda Police, Inspectorate of Government, and the Directorate of Public Prosecutions to, among others, detect, prevent, and prosecute money laundering cases. We would secure 2 trillion shillings every year that actually is stolen. So, Right Honorable Prime Minister, that's a grey area, and you know Uganda still remains on the grey list. So we need to get our country. It's not a good thing for the country. Finally, Accord has been working with the MSH. MSH is a U.S. company here, working to support the supply of essential medicines. And we have developed a 10-year roadmap. This country, 70% of the funding of our essential medicines comes from donors. You cannot claim to be independent when 70% of essential medicine is supported by donors. It questions your sovereignty. And therefore, and you can have a crisis, you know, depending on donors. We saw in Afghanistan, the US pulled out and there was a crisis. So what if this funding dries? You would lose so many people immediately who are dependent, especially people suffering with HIV, TB, and others. So, but on this one, I want also to applaud the Honorable Minister of Finance, because we've been working with your ministry. The PSST will tell you to develop this roadmap, of course, with the Ministry of Health. In 10 years, Uganda should graduate itself and fund 100%. And we agreed on the amount of money that Uganda government can put in. I think this financial year, you have, Honorable Minister, you have put in 74 billion shillings. Of course, it is way below the projected, what we had agreed. But it is something, because the other financial year you put in 50 billion. This financial year you put in 74 billion. So that is commendable to you. But I think we need to look at these areas that make that secure our sovereignty and invest in it. But finally, and I want to risk this one on corruption. Seriously, on corruption, I think, Minister, Honorable Minister, we did not see a serious intervention on corruption, because I think corruption could undermine our effort to achieve, of course, the most of our target that we have set, and corruption seems to have become now accepted. We cannot settle on corruption, because corruption even can bring about instability. Corruption can kills people, and I know that fighting corruption is also difficult. But we can reduce the impact of corruption. We can reduce it to the minimum level where it hides. But when you see corruption walking on the street, then you are finished. So, Right Honorable Prime Minister, let us fight corruption. Let the people hide. Let people not be free, because they become models for our children. And these children's and this country's prosperity and survival must be built on the ethic of hard work and integrity. That is what sustains the country. That's what sets the country apart. So I would want to see money going to the institutions that fight corruption, but also creating awareness and attacking corruption on every opportunity that you get on the television, everywhere, so that people don't think that we have accepted it. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Join me in thanking our brothers for the good presentations. He wants us to fight corruption like we did for COVID-19. He wants us to make it a very risky venture. Thank you so much. Can I now invite the chairperson, Private Sector Foundation? You know, I knew they were coming together when I saw two people moving together. The chairperson, Private Sector Foundation. This is Eric. Let's welcome him, members.
Right Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister for Finance, all protocol observed, good afternoon. My name is Eric Sempambo. I am not the chairperson of Private Sector Foundation, but I'm representing this chairperson who is unable to be with us as somebody who leads the technical bit of the budget advocacy work that we do. I'm a business environment specialist at Private Sector Foundation. Honorable members, we do appreciate Minister of Finance for continuously involving us as Private Sector Foundation in the efforts to influence private sector development in Uganda. Actually, last year, 78% of our proposals were included in the budget. And that is something we really appreciate the ministry on. But of course, that is including in the budget. Our interest is actually higher when it comes to implementation of those recommendations. And we believe we would like to see a budget strategy of the next financial year that is very strong on implementing what we agree on. To an extent that we believe we could also play a role in policy monitoring and some instances even implementation, because we are very strong at planning and evaluation. But implementation and monitoring, as private sector, we are always absent. We believe we have a contribution to make, and that is one of the areas that could interest us as we look at the budget of the next financial year. The second aspect, members, is on electricity. There's quite a lot of discussion around rationalization of electricity provision, and actually that is it has become noise for especially industrialists. So people who have invested, they are not sure whether they will be having an efficient system of getting power at affordable rates in the future. So it's not yet clear. So we believe we should have clarity on this matter in the strategy. It's very important to promote investments, but also safeguard the available investments in that area. Our third point is on looking at what is happening with the global economy, especially interest rates coming very high, FDI and the risk it has on our exchange rate, especially appreciating. And actually, Economic Policy Research Center has done a study that shows that our shilling is likely to appreciate by 15 to 25% just because of the final investment decision. So that will make imports cheaper. The question is, what are we going to tell our coffee farmers if they are unable to fetch the right prices for exports? So for us, we believe that that should take center stage of budgeting going forward. Critical aspects of prioritizing investments in areas that generate the quickest returns possible. The quick one I can think of is investment in water for production. Many times when we think of agriculture, we assume that we need rain. Yet we actually need water. We don't need rain. So investment in water is very critical. Very critical, and we see it generate quick returns that we can tap tax revenue from, but also grow the economy at all as a block. If you look at tourism, product development, we still concentrate a lot on world-based tourism, and yet there is quite a lot of things we can do. So we expect to see more investment in product development, marketing, and a number of other areas that are similar to that. We believe that if we do that, then we'll be able to generate resources in terms of tax revenue in the quickest way possible, but also stimulate the economy that feeds all of us. So the third point, honorable members, is about a study that we've conducted recently. It shows that actually the capacity utilization of manufacturing firms is at only 35.2%. What do I mean? The investments in the machines that are available within the factories only work 35% of the time. The rest of the time, they are idle. Why are they idle? The biggest reason is on demand. Because manufacturers cannot produce and keep, they have to produce and sell. It has worsened. Before COVID, it was about 52%. Right now, it's at 35%. And that gives us a big impetus to look at public procurement, local content. We need local content that supports the local players. The challenge we have is we still have a lot of public investment that doesn't stay in the economy, but rather goes into foreign markets, so as capital flight. Close to 70% of the money that goes into that area doesn't stay in the economy to stimulate. So we're proposing that we should review the guidelines and reservation schemes of the PPD Act to provide for stronger mechanisms that support the private sector into local content. But important also enforce the existing provisions, because in some areas the law exists, but it's just enforcement that is actually weak. This is again one of those quick areas that you can intervene and generate tax revenue that we need as a country to cushion off the challenges we have. The other area that is being proposed by the study is on stimulating domestic demand. If you look at the current statistics, we don't have a current figure, but the most recent one we can work with is about purchasing power being at 7,000 shillings. Now, 7,000 shillings being spent by somebody in a day is not effective to stimulate production. So we are looking at stimulating that. And some of the proposals we have in there are aspects like how do we use procurement to boost the economy. Quick example is school feeding. We have close to 11 million pupils in UPE. All those children need a balanced diet to grow up. If we came up with a good policy of feeding them, and for instance, just imagine if each one of the children is supposed to take 1 egg a day, that would mean you need 11 million eggs in a day. In a term, you can do the math. But what is interesting is that the same household where the children come from is where the eggs are also being manufactured. So that money would exchange hands, but that needs a policy to come through. So these are some of the areas, and we have quite a number of those other additional areas that we put out there. The last point that we propose that the strategy should look at is around tax compliance. For the private sector, whenever there is no tax compliance, it means distortions. It means some people are paying and others are not paying, and so they are outcompeted in the market. So we need to make sure that each one of the business community actually pays tax. Anybody who is supposed to pay tax, let them pay tax. But it's also important to look at a tax regime that is progressive, one that supports industries to grow but not retard and stay stagnant. So key areas to discuss is around excise duty. The excise duty regime we have is really not supporting MSMEs that are adding value, because many of them innovate using their own resources, and the sunk cost us so much that before they even break through, there is an excise duty rate. And what is actually doing currently is it's promoting informality. People are now going inwards because of that. So we believe we need to have a strong strategy that looks at that area. So, Honourable Minister and members, we have a comprehensive paper that we've written on this, and would wish to lay it on table at appropriate time, perhaps after this meeting. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Honourable Minister, honourable members of Parliament, we now go to the last item on today's agenda, and that's the plenary. So I will request the Honourable Rugorobi to help me pick a few members from the audience who will either ask or observe and do many things. Yes. And bring in your ideas. Honourable Rugorobi, please help me to identify those you think can also get an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Now it's time for you to respond, or to raise issues, to raise questions, to make observations. And we want to make sure that you keep your intervention as short as possible, because we are supposed to be taking lunch now, and we are supposed to be out of this place in the next 1 hour. So kindly keep it short, and I'll start with you right away. Mr. Magunga, give me the microphone.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister, my name is Gabriel Ataba, and I'm the cow of 932. I want to react on what was presented by the President Ulga, and also I think was in the Honorable Minister's presentation. That is on the 1 billion shillings, which districts have been given and municipalities. Now, as accounting officers at that level, we have a lot of problems. Last year, I remember with the PDM, many of us were arrested. And what was the reason? Lack of proper guidelines. Now, the Ministry of Works and Transport, in its wisdom, had proposed that we have that man as rehabilitation, and according to them, up to 15% was supposed to go for maintenance of equipment and operation, recurrent operations. Later, the ministry went to Parliament, and Parliament, in its wisdom, said that that money should revert to maintenance. But now the major problem which arose was the guideline which was given by Parliament. It says we are going to use the Road Fund Act 2008. But again, in the same document, it is restricting local governments to using only 5% of that money for both operation and also for equipment maintenance. Now, this is really a very big problem because that document itself is contradictory. Now, last week or something around there, the ministry forwarded to us the resolution of Parliament. As the chairman has put it, as the local governments were in dire straits, we want to implement. We want to avoid this issue of money every time is being taken back to a consolidated fund. So the government has to give us a way forward. What is the way forward? We need a document which is really very clear. Our proposal is that the Ministry of Works and Transport is the technical arm of government on issues of roads. And in its wisdom, it had proposed 15%. I want to request that if there is a way, Parliament should review its 5% and take it to 15%, so that we are able to do the work and to do the work very effectively and efficiently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next. Okay, I'll go to him. Do we have a micro? Him, you are moving away from him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to balance gender as we go on.
Okay. Gender must be aggressive enough ladies must be aggressive enough to get what they want. I have already stood, so you can as well wait.
Please go on.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister, and indeed our chair now. I'm just going to give a few points which I think need to be debated on. My name's Major Rubaramira Ruranga. I'm retired, but I work for Operation Wealth Creation as Director of Health and Community Outreach Campaigns. Now, that's not your business. I think the issue of fiscal management is so important. And I remember General Saleh, almost went back to the bush to find out exactly how the local governments can get money on time. But I still hear this problem is going on. It is something that needs to be done because all the work actually is done out there, not in the central. And the issue of private sector demanding that government should give them money, then do you remain private? I have issues about this because I think they should act like entrepreneurs to mobilize people so that they can help them to do whatever they want, like cooperatives do. Government people with cars, maybe because I'm a bit old, because in our time, you would rather get a higher purchase so that at the end, the car becomes yours. But it seems we have developed another AIDS, which this time is acquired income dependency syndrome. We seem to demand everything from government. Government is supposed to give you the enabling system, but surely government cannot continue to give everything to people. Someone talked about the educated and the PhDs. I don't know of anyone with PhD who is the richest even in the world. I think this should be on merit of entrepreneurship. There are people who do not go to PhDs and whatever, but who actually are very good.
I think you are running out of time.
Okay, I have only one point now to make, and then I go. We seem to concentrate on biomedical issues when you are talking about health. Health is before you go to the hospital. Health is not in the hospital. When you're in the hospital, you are ill. I think going to the hospital, that's how we shall get healthy people. Professor Maswa made it clear, health is made at home, not in the hospital.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let me attempt to balance gender. To your neighbor, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Hajat Green, Hajat Sebiala, and I'm the chairperson of the Committee of Environmental Practitioners of Uganda. I have 2 points. My first point is on rationalization, and I would request the Honorable Prime Minister to interest herself so much in the rationalization. There is a big problem which you need to analyze. Some of the agencies that are there in the omnibus, that is going to cause more problems than what we think is going to be a benefit. The other issue is on environment, and I would like to thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for the interventions that you have proposed. And I would like to, environment is about action, and I would like to donate this tree to you, Honorable Minister of Finance, to go and plant it. So that action starts here. Yes.
Has the security checked it?
Yeah, it is okay. This is very nice.
Mama is still fearing.
Yeah, I bet
okay, what is it, a mango or something?
No, it's a chitaferi.
Oh, chitaferi.
It's a sour soap, yes.
No, okay, thank you very much.
Honorable Gorobi.
Yes, ma'am.
Mama is fearing the rationalization exercise. I think she's trying to say the educated should not join the private sector. Because according to our previous speaker, said the educated should also join the other side because we left it to the same educated.
Yes.
And so for her, she's saying we are going to create more problems than we expect. I did not understand her.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I've been following this process. It has been on and off. There are agencies. Some of them have fallen off. Some of them are still there. There is a committee, Right Honorable Prime Minister, there's a committee of Parliament which is in charge of rationalization. It has actually made a report, and I would like you to address yourself to that report. And that report is recommending that some agencies should not actually be should not be rationalized. And they are giving reasons. So I would like you to address yourself to that report and to the reasons that are being given. I'm not going to name any, but they are there, they are listed.
Okay.
So they should not be in the omnibus. This is what I'm saying. That omnibus law that...
Okay, thank you very much. Can I now move? No more hands this side. I'll continue with this side. Can I move to the front bench? Continue balancing gender. That's not the way to balance gender.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Shaft Nasa Mkwaya. I am the Secretary to the Equal Opportunities Commission. Mr. Chairman, we shall all recall that the Constitution of Uganda calls for balanced development and the inclusion of every Ugandan to benefit from the country's socio-economic development. And I would like to therefore thank the Minister and the Minister of Finance for their attempt to try to make the annual budget gender inclusive and also addressing issues of equity. But I would like to remind all of us that the national budget is a tool for addressing imbalance in society created as a result of history, gender, age, and other factors. Now, as EOC, we are concerned about issues of equity and issues of gender, because we know that if Uganda is to be peaceful and prosperous, no one should be left behind. And our concerns are on the following areas. Number one, we have noted that a number of sub-counties in this country do not have secondary schools and health center 3s. We have also noted that about 16 districts in Uganda do not have equipment for maintaining roads. We've noted that young people, the youth especially, are complaining about the gross absence of sports infrastructure in their districts, regions, and at the national level. And we know that if you don't keep the youth busy, you know what they're capable of doing. We are also aware that government prioritizes education, science education, and ICT. But there is a contradiction that the emphasis has been put on paying the salary, the science teacher's salary, but not equipping laboratories and providing necessary science equipment in schools. So that alone cannot promote sciences in the country. We have also noted that there is often delays in releasing the budget. There are cuts, and this has affected essential service areas like education, health, and other social services. And is the issue of need for regional balance in terms of infrastructure development. We have received a lot of complaints from many Ugandans that their sub-regions are lacking essential infrastructure in the areas of road. And I would like to use this opportunity to mention to you that in the past, government had committed to make the following roads, which up to now, no financing has been made available. And this includes Lugazi Kiinji Road, Kayunga Galilaya Road, Kanoni Busunju, Raka Yantonde Isingro, Vira Maria, Kabula Soke Road, Jinja Budondo Kamuli, and Nebi Goli, Luero Nakaseke. We have received a petition from citizens from that area that the lack of financing of this infrastructure is a form of marginalization.
Okay.
And I think you will look into that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Sechitoreko, Honorable.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Victoria Sechitoreko from the Uganda Good Business Alliance. And I'm really very happy that I'm going to say this when the Right Honorable Prime Minister is here. Right Honorable Prime Minister, this is a special request. and it goes to you to please request the security sector to be careful what they tell the public. Agriculture, investment and tourism are very, very sensitive to all news that come out of everybody, especially if it is the president, the prime minister, or Mr. Enanga. When you put Uganda in the same sentence, whenever Uganda is mentioned, it is in the same sentence with words like bomb, like Ebola, like COVID, it affects agriculture, investment, and tourism. We want to thank the security sector for the fantastic job they do. But can they keep quiet? Let Enanga be deployed elsewhere. We are tired of his news. Yeah, because before tourists travel, they go into Google and they ask news from Uganda. Then Enanga, the bomb, the this, please. Secondly, when the minister was talking, he talked about the importance and lack of seeds and seedlings, and he had no way forward. Can I suggest that Minister of Finance actively look up Minister of Agriculture together with private sector, and we solve this problem, because it is real. And if I can just give you a small example as to why we are having issues with seeds, is that when government comes in and starts buying seeds and seedlings, and sometimes they don't know the origin of the seeds being given out, and these seeds don't germinate, the farmers, of course, start refusing seeds from Uganda. So as we talk now, if you want to check Madam Prime Minister, there are a number of private individuals importing seeds because they prefer imported seeds, and that is how we are spending our foreign exchange. Finally, industrial parks. When we say integrated and inclusive, then the Minister of Finance reads the list of industrial parks and aerodromes and leaves out Soroti. And he said that he's privatizing those districts which are poor. Did Soroti become rich? Why is the industrial park from Soroti being left out? Why is the trade left out? Finally, talking about health, somebody said health is made in the home. Madam Prime Minister, some years ago, the rate of stunting of Ugandan children, babies, was 20%. Now it has climbed to 25%. And to make matters worse, when you are stunted, you are not only short physically, you are also short in the head. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Minister, the microphone is this.
Yeah, let me balance the two sides.
Thank you.
I want to move to this side.
I want to dictate. Let me dictate.
Okay,
The other lady has been standing up in white somewhere. She turned here. Yes.
Yes, the right
Allow
one.
that lady to speak, because
okay.
she has been changing positions.
Sorry. They were even controlling my microphone. Thank you, Prime Minister. And why do you attack me? I'm protected. My name is Justina Chikestro. I've been involved in the development assistance arena since 1994. First 10 years with the Danish embassy, then 6 years with the Irish embassy. At the Irish embassy, I became the first Ugandan, first woman, during the time of Chogam, to lead the donor, to negotiate the government budget on behalf of Donors Club. And it was during Chogam. Mr. Ochaila was in charge of the Chogam budget. And that time, don't interrupt me. He was exactly director budget, and he was supposed to give us the Chogam budget. He gave us 1 page. We said it's okay, we shall go. This order what he came up with. Sadly, I became bipolar because of the pressure of dealing with thieves from Ministry of Finance. That's why I resigned. Now, let me get to my points. There is nothing new in in what you said, Mr. Minister. Yes, Uganda in the 90s were like this. I remember how you said, wee! That's how we were, fast in everything. Proudly, I was, you would go to a conference and they would want to know what, they hear from Uganda, they want to learn from you. In the Irish Embassy, there was an organization known as Capri. Florence Kutesa, she stood, she spoke, I was new. Let me introduce myself from Uganda. They came running, I think Maris was also there. Maris in South Africa, we were together. I knew nothing, so I sent them to Maris and go. But they wanted to know, what is Uganda doing? We had an IMF meeting in South Africa. Uganda, what is Uganda doing? Come the 8th, 9th, 2000, swap. You said we moved from swap and addressed the issues of PDA. We have not. You know, Danida was the biggest health donor to the health sector. The issues you've talked of, Sijui, what did you call it, furnishing health center force, they were in the PHC, which Mr. Omwasa said. Whenever I go to the village, I like to go and ask, are you happy with government? And they were until recently. Abanabitu, by the way, we discuss English. When you go to those countries, they speak so. Abanabitu, will you pay it to Gamukam? If you read today's New Vision, Simon Kaheri has made an important point. We should use our language. Now, why are we discussing in English? Let them come with these things of interpretation. When you go for those international meetings, do they speak in English? No. So when I went to the village, yes, sorry, madam, I don't know that madam understands what I'm saying. But I'll speak in English for the purpose of the Prime Minister. They say, yes, Musée has given us services, but those services no longer take our children to them. My mother has a school, private. They have all moved. All we had to do was initially paint. They moved from government to us. It's so shaming, really. But they will still vote for Musée because of peace.
Yeah, can I request you to summarize?
Now, Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam, summarize please in the interest of others.
Yeah. Honorable Minister of Finance, I went to your ministry the other day to say hello to former colleagues. Sadly, it was only a messenger who was remaining, whom I knew from that day. You cannot chase away institutional memory. I would like now to turn to the donors. In the past, it was the donors asking government to address gender issues. Did you hear them in the donor statement? No. Indirectly, they were telling us to address homosexuality. We cannot. Finally, on the issue of, construction, there's capital flight. Sincerely, you give, how many? I have to look at my facts, back of the envelope. The money available for roads is 21 trillion. Yeah? About 4 trillion to where? I don't know, anyway, I might be wrong, but the percentage that goes to the national farms, the money goes away. So how can we develop our country?
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we now move to this side?
We can now have the microphone.
Yes.
Thank you, Minister.
Who is that has grabbed the microphone?
I'm introducing myself, Minister. My name is Henry Morris Chibalia, and a Member of Parliament from Bugabula South Constituency. Honourable Minister, there are just a few issues. To begin with, our colleagues from local government overemphasized the issue of 1 billion and the guidelines and so on and so forth. Honourable Minister, just to base on that, as a Member of Parliament and as somebody who sits on the Committee of Physical Infrastructure, my EPS is there. We extensively discussed this, resolved and presented a report to Parliament, and Parliament circulated the resolution to districts. Equally requested the Minister for Local Government to study the same And the Minister for Local Government last week communicated to Parliament that he has officially communicated to local authorities in different districts about what we resolve. The issue is very, very clear. That 1 billion can not only go for rehabilitation, because the minister, I can even give an example in my district, municipality Kamuli, had earmarked a very small distance and the whole 1 billion had gone on that one that they were going to tarmac. We have Kanungu, earmarked 1 billion and it put it on one road. These are just simple examples. It's raining now, we need to maintain roads in those districts. So there is no shortcut, the shortcut is clear. That money is for maintenance and rehabilitation. That is the Parliament resolution. Let me go to the issue. Honorable Minister, when my judge, Minister for Finance was presenting, there is something I want to read verbatim. Government fully transformed from sector-wide approach to program-based planning and budgeting, and all challenges related to former have since been resolved. Honorable Minister, program-based, the issue when we discussed in Munyonyo is cutting across all ministries. And it can only work when you restructure the ministries. The president also comes and says, I've restructured the ministries. Now the ministries are now program-based. But saying that some money will cut from will move from one side to the other side, 5 ministries running one program, who will take charge? You communicated to the Clerk of Parliament that they restructure committees of Parliament. The clerk responded and said, how is it feasible and possible for him to restructure committees of Parliament when the ministries are still not yet restructured? But you have said all problems have been resolved. Honorable Minister, in your presentation, the issue of corruption, that's why you have had one of the presenters saying, we want to put a situation where corruption, everybody who is involved in corruption even fears to sit in public. But where corruption is walking on the streets, he even feared to say that corruption is even seated with us inside here. But the way you talked about corruption, it seems you have also resigned and accepted that corruption is a part of us and we can continue working with it, dine with it, and sleep with it. Kindly, we expect something tougher, and we expect to hear something serious as far as corruption is concerned. My Minister, the last issue is the chairperson of local government was talking about salary enhancement. We have cried. You can't have a balanced economy. You can't have some people offering services that you require and expect, either in school, in districts, or wherever, when there is that discrimination. It's high time, Honorable Minister, we looked into that one and enhanced the salaries for
Okay, thank you very much. I think point made. Honorable Urume.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you for the presenters. I listened very carefully to the Minister of Finance, and the strategy of strengthening the PDM came out very, very strongly. We have been making a case about population in respect to planning and public investment. And to remind you, the local governments on the basis of which we are dealing with in the implementation of parish development model are the parishes. Look, Eastern Uganda, with a population of 11.3 million, has 3,258 parishes. Western Uganda, with a population of 10.8 million, has a population of 3,025. Northern Uganda, with a population of 8.8 million, has 2,509 parishes. Central region, with 12.5 million people, has 1,700 parishes. And just by multiplication of the amount of money invested in the parishes, you know which region gets which amount of money. You know which region has got more population, less of the parishes, and less of the investment in that. Yes, I agree with you. We have been fighting against administrative units, creation of administrative units. But in order to create equity, the case has been made. Either you create more parishes in a region with the biggest number of people, or you deal with population in order to invest equitably in this population. I haven't seen this coming out in equitable development and investment in respect of PDM. No wonder that is where the region I come from, it is a thing on the ground. I would like the Minister of Finance to deal with this in the next, as a strategy, in the next financial year. Thank you.
Yes, Right Honourable will respond to that one. I'm being told that so we are running out of time. I'll only allow 2 more people, and to balance gender, those will be the female gender. Okay? Honourable Peace. And 1 more there.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Prime Minister, as represented by the Minister. 2 concerns and piece of advice. 1, I have observed on ground, and I appreciate the wide tax base that we have now reached out into the mushrooming towns, where we have put electricity and we are collecting taxes. The only challenge I find is that people go to collect tax, but they do not sensitize them. I want to appeal that sensitization is done fast, because the women who have just started working of late, if you just bump into them and you're ramming into their small businesses, collecting and taking them all away before sensitization, it may draw them back. That's a humble piece of advice. The second one is that we also appreciate the access to water in many places lately. But the challenge is on the bills. Small households are paying 200,000, 300,000 shillings on a monthly basis. And in other places you find them paying 15,000, 20,000. Do we have 2 different tax regimes? I followed up the matter. And there is a communications officer under National Water and Storage Corporation. And he told me there was a lot of complaints, but whenever they complain is when they handle the matter. I wish that was rationalized all over, so that we access water cheaply, because there's also a factor of production. And it also prevents a lot of diseases. Thank you for accepting my humble advice.
Okay, finally, ma'am, across.
Thank you very much. Dr. Agnes Atim-Mapea, Member of Parliament, Molatar District. I have 2 issues, and one is from the budget strategy, page 6, where the minister recognized that there is a decline in the private sector stock of credit. And there are no clear reasons why you think private sector is not getting this money. But also, you noted that these loans are actually going for personal loans and real estate. And yet, in your view, you think that this private sector credit would enhance the issues of commercial agriculture. And so I would like to hear from the minister what is going to do on issues of private sector development. And this has always been a talk that we are in a private sector-led economy, but it looks like all our budgets only focus on offering credits, but not private sector development. I would want to hear from that. The second issue is on the theme of the next financial year, 2024-2025. Honorable Ministers, this theme has been around for a while, and I wanted to find out whether these themes are selected based on a review or a research, whether these big buzzwords actually mean for the economy. For example, the issue of commercialized agriculture do we have any progress reports on how commercialized our agriculture is, so that we present these budgets on real facts and evidence-based budgets, but not words that will excite our people. And as politicians, we are always held accountable by our people, that every year we are talking about agriculture, but not much is being done. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable, you delegated me to be responsible for this particular session, and I hope I have delivered. It is now time for responses, some of which are going to come from you yourself. Some questions appear to have been directed to you, then to the presenter, the Honorable Minister himself, and the technical people from the Ministry of Finance, but also other ministries, because we are in this thing together. You know, some of the questions will be addressed by them. So you are the chair. I hand over back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Members, I want to suggest that in the interest of time, we have captured all your concerns, and the Ministry of Finance, together with my office, will send you the responses thereafter. Guide us on the next way forward. Now, I think, since I'm the chair, you go there and invite me to speak as president now to close.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister and colleagues and all of you, because of shortage of time, it will be very difficult for each question to be answered in full. We have decided that whatever you have asked has been captured, and I promise on that one, has been captured. Then later on, either in sessions or as when the budget is being debated, even in the rural areas, we'll be providing the answers. Because some of the questions are technical, we need some figures. It's not easy to speak about it in just off cuff like that. That's what we have decided. Thank you. Now, can I invite you to come and make one or two remarks and I think wind us up?
The Honorable Ministers present, protocol observed. In the interest of time, I bring you greetings from His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda, who is aware we are here at the day of the budget conference. And so he delegated me to represent him at this very important conference. He gave me a speech which I'm going to read. The budget strategy for the financial year 2024-2025 outlines interventions required to achieve faster socio-economic transformation of Uganda. It is anchored on the objectives of the Third National Development Plan, the NRM Manifesto 2021-2026, and accelerating economic growth to expand the size of the economy to $500 billion in the medium term. Attainment of this goal will require doing business in a different way, including ensuring accountability, fighting corruption, improving coordination of government programs, and improving effectiveness of government. The ultimate goal is to build an independent, integrated and self-sustaining economy. This will involve transitioning from a raw materials-based to a manufacturing and knowledge-based economy, as well as improving the environment of doing business in Uganda and making it competitive. This will also require repurposing of the budget to provide resources to high-impact growth areas to be able to shift to higher growth paths that will bring us wealth and prosperity. We must also implement measures to mitigate the negative effects of the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard from the Honorable Minister's speech, the economy is doing well. However, this has to transition into incomes of the ordinary Ugandans by ensuring that funds are allocated to the priorities set out in the budget. Focus will be placed on ensuring that all Ugandans, the investors, and the entire private sector are safe and secure, including their investments. Greater effort will be placed on the effective implementation of the Parish Development Model, PDM. This is the model that will bring our people from subsistence to the money economy. This will address the current issues we have in adding value to the agriculture and improving productivity in order to raise incomes of Ugandans. Accelerating socio-economic transformation will require deliberate investment in science, innovation, research and development to improve on competitiveness of our exports and to innovate into new ones. Achieving these goals will require financial discipline and avoiding spending our scarce resources on consumptive expenditure. We have to act smart and deliberately if we are to overcome the global challenges we are facing today, including the adverse effects of climate change. You are all seeing what is happening globally, including in Africa. For example, what has happened in Libya. We have to improve climate-smart agriculture. Our domestic revenue remains far below expenditure, and therefore we need to double our efforts to be able to mobilize our own resources. We must stop the leakages in domestic revenue mobilization and expand the tax base to increase revenue to be able to finance a larger portion of our budget. I take this opportunity to thank you all for your time, and I encourage you to read and internalize the strategies that the Ministry of Finance has outlined, aimed at accelerating economic growth to reach US dollars 500 billion in the medium term. It is possible if we all act deliberately. I want to thank our development partners and the private sector for the continued support and engagement on the development issues as we transition from the raw material-based economy to an industrialized one. The ultimate goal is to create employment and raise household incomes of all Ugandans. I want to thank the Ministry of Finance for preparation of the required documents for this conference. With these few remarks, I now declare the conference on the budget strategy for the financial year 2024-2025 officially closed. I thank you.
So we are going to soon be standing up for the... May I make quick announcements? One, that this is the start of the consultative process. So the regional conferences will take place immediately, starting next week. For those who have not had an opportunity to present here, please present to MPs, present to regional conferences, and also present to committees of Parliament. The last quick announcement is that lunch is being served upstairs. Kindly don't exit, go upstairs, lunch will be served. May I request development partners, MPs, ministers to join the Prime Minister for lunch, which is being served in the Addis room. It's just upstairs. Other than that, we thank you very much, and I will request that the anthems be prayed. Thank you very much. We thank you very much. We request kindly that you allow the VIPs to exit, allow the Prime Minister and the ministers to exit. As we do that, I once again want to mention that the lunch is being served out. Kindly don't leave. You will get access. Thank you very much.